Hey everybody, Tim Kawakami here, the TK Show, recording from the home studio with a regular guest, a frequent guest, whatever you want to say. It's Joe Lacob, the owner of the Warriors, in a conversation I'm sure that won't get aggregated or clipped out or zinged all over the place. That's okay. It's not good when it's bad aggregation, but when it's somebody saying interesting stuff, it's going to zing out of there, and I accept that. Joe, I got to ask you right. Well, first of all, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much for having me. As always, I always enjoy doing these with you.
I appreciate that. The news this morning is incredibly eye-opening. The Lakers just not even a year or a year and a half after Mark Walters' group bought the Lakers from the Buss family, Jeannie Buss and the Buss family, has now been sold to Josh Kushner and Bob Iger. Bob Iger, obviously a very well-known figure in the NBA, former head of Disney, ABC, all those things, ESPN, for a $12.5 billion valuation. It's a very high number. They were just sold recently for $10 billion. I'm not going to ask you for comments on this. Obviously, it's owners that don't speak about owners. But Joe, you see that number? It's all confirmed. It's all out there. In any way, does that make you think, hey, maybe the Warriors are worth that, and let's see if you can sell?
No, it really, honestly, it's interesting, clearly, and from maybe my limited partners, all certainly very happy, but doesn't really change anything respect to me. This is my life, and I enjoy doing it, and can't imagine making a change.
Does it surprise you to see the Lakers sold twice in a very short time?
Of course it does. I don't really know what's going on at all, so I don't really have anything to add to the dialogue. It's only an hour old or so. I'm shocked. Who wouldn't be? The only thing I can imagine is there's something going on, and I'm just imagining that we don't know about yet. It's just hard to believe you would close it. It was actually October of 25, I think.
Yeah, it wasn't that long
Not
ago.
even a year. And to flip it, this isn't like flipping a house. So, or maybe it is, I guess. I don't know. But I don't think that's the story. There must be more to it than that is all I can guess.
All right, let's move on to the Warriors offseason, which is basically finally at an end. I mean, maybe you do one or two more things because you do have an open roster spot or two. But, Joe, much has been said. Much has been well-documented discussion. I understand a lot of it. You guys did not have a great season, 37-45. Win one game of the play-in, lose the second game of the play-in. You got Jimmy Butler injured. You have Moses Moody injured. I don't know what the prospects are for when their returns will be. We'll see. And you did not add anybody, no veteran. Obviously drafted Jax Lenenberg, and you brought back a lot of people from the team, the free agents. You brought them back. Joe, how would you describe what this offseason was like for the Warriors? And do you understand the people going, well, couldn't you get somebody here, add somebody to this?
Well, we did. I understand from a standpoint of the everyday fan, some of them anyway, why they might say that. I know that's the narrative, and I read everything too. But every decision we made was a dependent decision going from one season to the next. Obviously, last year was very disappointing. I thought we were on our way to having a pretty darn good year when we sustained, unfortunately, two really devastating injuries basically halfway through the year. And Steph missed half the season too. So it was a really tough, year. And I understand that. But, these things do happen. As we all know, it's sports. And from one day to the next, things can happen. Going into the offseason, we had to look at coaching. We had to look at players. In each case, DeAnthony Melton versus whatever the alternative was, we decided we'd like Melton better. And so that's what we did. So I don't consider it doing nothing. I consider these making decisions, positive decisions. He's a lot healthier than it was a year ago. Mm-hmm. You go and look at some of the others. We didn't have Kristaps Porzingis last year. We traded Kuminga for him, and we had to make a decision whether they're going to go after him or somebody else. That slot, we got, I think, a really good player that we think we have healthy now. We have a great medical staff, as everyone knows, training staff. And so very, very optimistic and positive about that. That makes us a lot better team. This guy, when he's right, and he's not old, is a 25-point per game scorer. He's a 7'3", he's a freak. He's 7'3", he can shoot threes. He's a great shot blocker too. So very excited about that. And I could go down the line. Each of these decisions were independent decisions. It just so happens that it looks like the same people that were on the roster for the most part, other than a couple of rookies, perhaps, from last year. But actually, it's really very different. I mean, we've got guys that, we still have two guys that are injured, so we need to get them back mid-year. And Curry hopefully will be healthy this year. We don't know. We hope so. We're doing everything, and he's doing everything to make that happen. So I'm actually excited about our team. I don't understand what all the negativity is about. There are those out there that are very critical, of course, about everything. There are always going to be some of that. Look, it's sports. Everyone has an opinion. They have a right to their opinion. At least we're being talked about. It's better than not being talked about, right? But I like our team. We did try to make a few moves that you alluded to, that there are 29 other teams looking to do these things, and sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. We just got Jimmy Butler in a very big deal. What was it, 17 months ago? I mean, I don't know what it was. That's a big move. That's a max salary slot. Unfortunately, he's injured. That kind of puts a crimp in some of the things you might be able to do or not do. You certainly can't add another max salary. We don't have any cap room. We have the largest. We're right below the second apron, like tiny amount. We, I think, have the second highest payroll. One team is over in the entire league. It's not like we don't spend money. We spend every resource to be as good as we can be, given the circumstances, every year. And I think we also don't view this as a one-time. I know everyone does this summer, but sometimes it works out to get somebody in the summer. Sometimes it's at the trade deadline. It's a continuous thing. We do have a lot of draft choices still that we could move and would move, and in fact tried to move to get some players if they're the right players and the right decision. We have a lot of things we can do up to the next trade deadline to improve our team if we decide that's the right thing to do. So I'm actually very enthusiastic about our team. I think we're a playoff team. I think Steve is invigorated to come back, and we need to change internally, as Mike alluded to yesterday. I think we need to do a little better job on the inside as well. Turnovers and some of the things they're doing. And Steve's the first one to say it. We had long discussions about that. He's a great coach, and I think he's really energized about this upcoming year.
Well, let's talk about those draft choices. That's the one that I got myself into it, I guess. I was just trying to say, someone asked me about the Warriors having not traded your draft choices. Other teams have done it. Some teams haven't. And I just said, I think Joe Lacob wants to win as many championships as he can with Steph Curry, and he also wants to win championships after Steph Curry. I don't think that was a controversial statement. It was blown up like the assumption was you are only thinking about the future. But how do you view the future? We're going to get into Steph, obviously, in his extension. But how do you view this? Like, hey, we've got these draft picks. You just had the 11th pick, which was pretty valuable with the player you got. Looked obviously very good in Summer League. How do you weigh the prospect of these picks into the future versus cashing them in for something that could help you right now?
Well, it's like anything. It's like any other trade. We have to make a good trade. We have to make a trade that makes sense. If we thought we had a great trade in front of us, and by the way, without talking a little bit too much, more than I should, about secret, dealings that went on in the offseason, we made at least two very big offers in the last 6 months. Let's put it that way. Between the trade deadline and the summer, at least two, were multiple draft choices. So it's not like we wouldn't move them if we thought it was the right thing to do. We moved one for Jimmy when we got him then. I can tell you that our offers that we did make were more than two. They were a significant amount of draft capital. They didn't work out. The cost was too high to be justifiable, or we weren't selected. I mean, these things happen. I've told you guys, I've told all our fans from day one, we're always, this, we're going to go after pretty much anybody who's a good player and check it out. Check out the situation at all times. We want to be as good as we can be this year. Okay. We're trying to be the best team we can do. We're trying to win an NBA championship. I think obviously we have a ways to go to do that, but we're coming off some big injuries. But the point is, we're always trying to be the best team we can be. And we're very aggressive about doing these things. Sometimes they happen and sometimes they don't. And you shouldn't perceive that just because it didn't happen, in July 1 through 5 or whatever, or February, whatever, that something else couldn't happen, because it could. Mike is very aggressive about all this. I know he's getting quite a bit of criticism, and I'm sure I get some, and you definitely get a lot.
I get a lot. I get a lot.
But,
more than anybody. No, that's okay. It's all
right.
good. It's all good.
So I just want everyone to understand we're always being aggressive. You can't just say, it's so easy. Why don't you just do it? It's not that easy. It can be done, and we've been successful in the last decade of making some very big moves, whether it be Durant, whether it be Iguodala, whether it be Jimmy Butler. I mean, Andrew Wiggins. I mean, it doesn't happen every year. It doesn't happen every trade deadline, and doesn't mean it won't happen tomorrow. So I just think people need to be a little patient. Look at the long-term view of how well we've done, and I think we've done a really good job of being competitive. This is we owned the team for 16 years. I don't know any other teams that have won 4 championships during that, even the last 11 years. I don't know any that won 3 or 2, because nobody else has won more than 1. And so that's the fact. 6 finals and 4 championships. You got to look at the big picture here. And it doesn't mean we're not trying to do it in, quote, Steph's remaining years. We are. We're trying. We're trying really hard.
That is the thing that's now brought up the most. Obviously, Steph's final prime years, and it's amazing his prime years, we can still talk about that he has potentially future prime years at age 38, and is coming off missing a lot of games, but in the games he played, he was still fantastic, and we saw the play-in victory in LA. But are you sensitive to the fact that, like, Steph does not have much time left? This is the greatest player who will ever put on a Warriors uniform. As I've said it, you don't just build for championships for the future. You build for the best thing you can do. And after Steph, it will be worse. Everybody knows it. It just will. So how much of a preoccupation, I guess, is that on your mind, on your executive's mind? That this is you're never going to have another Steph Curry.
Yes, I am sensitive to it. And clearly he might be around 1 year, 2 years, although he could be LeBron and be around at 45. Mm-hmm. We don't know that either. He's one of those remarkably conditioned athletes. I wouldn't put anything past him. But having said that, yeah, we understand that. And Draymond's older as well. I mean, Clay, of course, is gone now, but no, it's going to happen at some point. People are going to be done or leave or whatever. But my point is that we are trying at all times to be as good as we can be. It's never acceptable not to be the best team you can possibly be for your fans, for the franchise, for Steph, for everybody. And we're always trying to do that. We really are. And I know that's not good enough for some people who apparently have only been watching for 4 years or something. By the way, we did win a championship 4 years ago. Mm-hmm. So it's not as if that hasn't happened in the last. I always hear this line, well, you've been so bad since 2019 with your drafting and your team development and all. We won a championship in 2022. We won the NBA championship in 2022. So we're trying. And I wouldn't make so many conclusions about what we're going to be and how bad we're going to be after either. Our intent is to be good at all times. I think we have a great scouting staff. We have a great development staff. We have one of the world's greatest coaches. We spend more money than any other team in every aspect of this, both on players and on our fans and on everything, to be the best we can be in everything we do. And we're going to continue to do that.
Dunleavy was pretty open yesterday. I wasn't on the call. I was at the 49ers practice. So was Dunleavy, by the way, but he left early and I had work to do. But very open about, you have your expiring contracts. You have multiple draft picks you can trade, as you mentioned. That this team could look very different. You don't think of it, and I've heard this from you, and I've heard this from many people. Like the franchise, the team that you have in August isn't necessarily going to be the team you're going to have in March and April. You have the trade deadline in February. You can make moves leading up to that also. Is that just assumed like you're going to be poised to make a move, not guaranteeing a big trade at the deadline? You never know. But is this thing poised for something pretty interesting going into January and February?
Well, I think we're definitely poised. We have a lot of assets. But to be honest, we have to do a couple things here. We want to see just how good is Yaxel in the first half of the year. I'm really, and so are all of us, very excited about him. Could make basketball, one guy can make a big difference, and he's got a position of need for us. We want to see just how are Moses and Jimmy doing. We're all just assuming, or a lot of people are assuming, oh, Jimmy's not going to be the same player, or Moses is not going to be the same player. Hey, that's not necessarily true. Those guys work really hard. they could be back in January and look really good. Those would be great trade late deadline additions. So I just think people need to understand that we need more data here a little bit, and we're going to be continually looking. And if the right deal does come along, we're definitely going to pull the trigger. I want us, and we want us to be as good as possible, and we're looking at all things at all times. So that's all I can say. I mean, I really think that, I know there's a certain amount of people that want instant gratification. I like it too.
Yes, you do. I know that's the other thing. Like, there's
like
nobody, nobody more than Joe Lacob.
Get instant gratification.
Let's talk about Steph Curry. He is eligible for a contract extension in late this month, in a few weeks. He has said initially that he would certainly be interested in talking about one. You guys cannot do it until August 29. But Joe, in your mind, is Steph Curry going to be signing an extension if it's up to you at the end of August?
I mean, we have to have that conversation with him. It's not the date yet. We're not at that point, but we're getting close. We'll have that conversation. We'll see what he wants to do, what his camp wants to do. Mike and our group will, decide what's the appropriate thing from our end. But my guess is, Steph, I wouldn't worry about this too much. Steph loves it here. We love him here. I don't want Steph to go anywhere. I really can't imagine a scenario where he's going anywhere. I think we'll do what needs to be done.
Can you even actually, Mike talked about it a little bit. Like, if Steph ever mentioned to you that he would like to go elsewhere, you would have that discussion. Could you even imagine having that discussion actually right now? Yeah.
No, I don't think this is even a thing. This is just a clickbait thing from all these people that do this kind of thing these days, and there seem to be a lot of them. Mm-hmm. I don't believe that any of that's true. I'm very close with Steph. He lives right near me. He's incredibly happy, I think, with the organization, with his life. He's got a great life, and his kids are very involved in schools and all that. I just don't see any of that. I've never heard a word about that, and I can't imagine it. And we certainly don't want him to go anywhere. That idea that somehow we want him to go, we do not want Steph Curry to go anywhere. Love Steph Curry, and we think he's a great player. And I just think people are completely making a bunch of crap up. It's just totally not true.
When you're a big team, people talk about you. It's like, that's just part of it.
Fine.
And as you said, you're gonna at least they're talking about you. Let's talk about LeBron James then. No secret that you were on his short list. Rich Paul had it up on a board on his on TV show. How close do you think that got? Did you ever have any real one-to-one discussions with LeBron about selling him on the Warriors?
Well, I have to be careful what I say because he is a member of another team at this point. But it was reported that he was certainly a free agent, and he was in discussions. Well, I don't know how much discussions there were, to be honest, but he was available to go somewhere, and we certainly were in that narrative and that discussion. I think if he would have been chosen to come to us, that would have been great. I think it would have been very entertaining for the world at large, world of basketball. Look at the Olympics, and him and Steph and all that stuff. But he chose to go a different route, and I can't really tell you why, because I don't really know why. Congratulations to Bob Myers, I guess, who I think is great at his job, and surprisingly, perhaps to some, maybe convinced him to go there, or he decided. I don't really know the answers. I think it would have been very interesting, but we were never assuming that it was going to be the case. Well, certainly have plan A, plan B, plan C. I mean, we look at all the scenarios, and it would have been very interesting. I'll just say that, but it didn't happen. I can't really give you a good reason because I don't really know.
There's another one where you might be avoiding a little bit of this because another team's player, but were you involved when trade talks with Boston for Jaylen Brown? He did get traded.
Well, I was not, but Mike certainly had discussions. I think they canvassed, I think it's been reported, they canvassed the entire league, and they wanted a lot. And I think they, for whatever reason, made the decision they did, let's just put it that way, to a division rival, which is unusual. Can't really say much more about it than that. He's a member of another team, and He's a good player.
That Bob Myers, when Myers showed up on the Rich Paul podcast, I was going, okay, this is pretty interesting. I don't know, might have just been a random occurrence, but that was pretty interesting. All right, Joe. We haven't talked about the Steve Kerr situation. That happened a long time ago, but it was a very prolonged situation. He ends up coming back. But what was your thinking? I was there after the loss in Phoenix, and Steve said sometimes these things have a shelf life. Felt like he was ready to go. Did you think that Steve was going to go at that point?
I really didn't know. I know everyone thinks we know all these things, but I didn't know. I don't think Steve really knew either. We had it was 2 or 3 weeks of discussions, because I think Steve was trying to figure out what he wanted to do. We also were looking at the situation, and I think they were incredibly productive discussions and a meeting of the minds. And, you just don't let go of a Hall of Fame coach just to let go of a Hall of Fame coach. I mean, just to make change. And Steve, I was very impressed in our discussions that he felt he could have done a better job last year. We certainly can do a better job too at some of the things we do. But I think he wanted to evaluate it in great detail and really talk about the near term and what he wanted to get out of it, what we wanted to get out of it. And I think they were just very productive discussions about how to go about this next year. I think you're going to see a very energized and invigorated Steve Kerr this year. And I've talked to him recently. I know some people think we're bringing back the same 37-win team. I hear that all the time, which we're not, in my opinion. And Steve doesn't feel that way either. He's very excited about our team. We're healthier, certainly, at this point than we were last year. There's always the risk that we won't be. We do have 2 big chess pieces coming back during the course of the year. And, I don't view it as a 37-win team. I view that was a team that your 2 or 3 of your biggest players were out half the year. I mean, we probably would have been a 50-win team. I really believe that. So I don't see any reason we added a great rookie that we're very excited about as well. So, I mean, I think we are going to be a pretty good team. And Steve is excited about coaching this team. I can tell you that.
No, he said some things when he came back that, definitely sound like a recalibration. This team isn't going to contend for a championship. Now, he was factoring Jimmy and Moses being hurt too, but it's the broader point is being made. Definitely a team that hasn't made the playoffs. Steph, the night that you were eliminated, talked about it can't just be championship anymore. And these are subtle points. I'm not trying to say that these 2 foundational figures are saying it's over, but that there had to be kind of an emotional or intellectual adjustment to the way you thought about things. Joe, that's not you. So that's not normally the way you approach things and have won with so many different things. But could there be some kind of reallocation of what you think about when this team can win, what it has to do to win, and where that might happen?
Look, our best player, one of the best players in the world, is older. One of our other great veterans, Draymond, is older. Al Horford is older. We've got some older guys. So we also have some really good younger guys. But my point is, would I put us right now, if I'm being an objective fan, would I put us, in championship contention with, let's say, an Oklahoma City or San Antonio? No. I think we have to probably add to our team, and some things really have to happen for that to happen. Some would say it won't happen, but I'm not so convinced of that. But I do think that we're better potentially than a lot of people think. And, this idea that we have all great teams that have won have some older players and some younger players. It's never all young. I mean, San Antonio probably comes the closest. Mm-hmm. The 3 key players are all so young this last year. First time we've really kind of seen that. But most teams have a mixture of players on their team. The Knicks, a mix of players. And I think we have a mix. And again, health is so important to all these teams. If San Antonio loses their wonderkind, they're in trouble. It's just basketball. Injuries play a big role, especially in the playoffs. I think you have to understand that. So you do have to stay healthy.
when you were talking with Steve Kerr, I think it was suggested that maybe you're both sides are going to talk about style of play or schematically. And also, I think maybe philosophically, get younger players in there if you can. Uh, how detailed were those discussions, Joe? How important was it for you to have those discussions?
I mean, they were important discussions and very detailed. And we knew it would be very important to add a player in the draft at 11, a very strong, historically strong draft this year. I think we'll see. Let's just leave it at that. I think we nailed it, but we'll see. And we got lucky a little bit too, that the rest of the league doesn't value players over 19 years old in the top 10. So I think we got a great player. And I think that can make a big difference. And he's obviously going to have some learnings too. But um, look, we do need to be a little younger here and there for sure. And we have some really good young players, is the truth. We need to add more. You're always transitioning to something at some level, every even during the course of the year. So I think that's true. But we do have a core of really good older players too, that if we can keep them healthy, are really hard to beat. Jimmy Butler comes back the way he was. You put him, we know what him and Steph Curry can do. By the way, everyone's assuming it's going to be really tough for him to do that. And that's true. He's a little older, but people come back from ACLs these days and they come back pretty good.
That 37 is going to be interesting, but yeah, I understand that point. Let's throw you a layup. Yaxel Lenneborg, I know you were very high on him. What was your thinking going into the draft? And what did you think you saw from him in Summer League?
I thought he was there's we and then there's I. I think all of us thought he was a top 5 player in the draft. I mean, that's a fact. And I think he kind of proved this summer that he probably was. Now, we'll see what happens this next year. Obviously, you have to prove it on the court against real NBA teams and players. But he is, for us in particular, sort of the perfect archetype. He's 6'10" in shoes, by the way, and 245 pounds. How many 6'10" wings do you see in the NBA that can do what he does? He really has no weaknesses. He can shoot the three. He can drive. He can hit the mid-range. He can block shots. He's a really good rim protector, actually, blocking shots off the board and stuff like that. Really good defensive player. Steve has said he thinks he can play and defend 1 through 4, 1 through 5. I mean, what doesn't he do? And he's got a great attitude. He made a decision. I was really impressed with him this summer. He said, I'm playing every game this summer. I want to win. I'm really impressed with him in the NCAA finals. He came back. Who would have played on that ankle? Very few. I mean, really hurt, and he played. So there's an attitude and a makeup of this guy that's pretty special too. I think he's a very special player, and we're really excited to have him on our team.
Could you see him playing right away? I know it's up to Steve. It's up to whatever, but
Steve's the coach. But yeah, I think we all know it's a position of need for us, especially with Moses and Jimmy being out the first half of the year. I mean, Yaxel's going to get every opportunity to get a lot of minutes, and who knows? Might even start. Who knows?
You might have answered this before, and maybe even to me. I'm thinking now. Mike Dunleavy has originally signed a 3-year contract. Has he signed an extension beyond that? Is he signed into the future?
He is.
How many more years?
I don't know if we've disclosed it, but he's one of the best right now. I don't care what anybody says. This guy's one of the best GMs in the league. I love him. I think he's great. He's really smart, incredibly hardworking. He's done a great job with the draft. Since he's been here, from what I can see, second-round picks that have been certainly shot above their weight, if you will. Yaxel looks really good. Was a Summer League MVP. I mean, he takes a great interest in the organization as a whole. Mike's really good, and I'm really happy to have him as the guy making the basketball decisions on our side.
We get his on right now. The viral image of you and Dunleavy right when you're about to pick him seemed to be. You made your classic Joe Lacob face. This happens sometimes. Just watch him on the sidelines and see the Joe Lacob face. What was going on when the camera caught you at that moment?
I think it's been reported, but we had a certain team that was trying to move up in the draft, and they were calling us constantly prior to the pick. And then when we're ready to take our pick, we didn't know if he was going to be there. Obviously, really happy he was. And then right before we phoned the pick in that 5-minute window, we're still getting calls. And it's his job to evaluate that. And he did the right thing. And so I saw he was on the phone. I could hear what was going on. And I looked over at him, and he whispers something like, what the offer was, which we have to listen to. And I just said, come on. But that was the reaction. And he knew we were total agreement. There was no disagreement whatsoever. But, unfortunately it was caught on video, and it's worth 1,000 words, I guess. People think they can make up the words.
Yes, as happens all the time. Well, I'll just get to the draft theme a little bit, and I don't want to go over and over this. You and I have discussed this theme many times, but you did have those 2 lottery picks. If you had to think about what happened, and in Steph Curry's prime, and wasn't able to continue this at the highest level, James Wiseman with the 2nd pick. Next season, John Kuminga with the 7th pick. Joe, how do you look back on that? How that all played out? I know this is a long. Yeah. I just popped in my head. But do you look at okay? That's where we could go back and look at it, or just like those were the players that were in front of us, and the draft is a hard thing to do.
If you look at the draft over history, just go back and look at even the 2nd pick, but any of these picks over 5 or 10 year period, you're going to see a lot of them aren't even in the league anymore. It's just hard. These are human beings. They don't quite always work out as we analyze them. And look, I hate to say this, I love Wiseman's a nice kid and everything, but the pick it didn't work out. We have to take responsibility for that. We were unanimous in that. Everyone liked him a lot, but it didn't work out, and we have to take responsibility. We missed on that, no question. I would not say that's true about, as an example, we haven't had many picks in the top 10. Moody wasn't even in the top 10. He was a lottery pick. He's worked out by statistical standards. If you look at is he a superstar? No. Is there someone at the history, certain players have gone at 15 and been stars? Yeah, all right. We didn't get that, but he's certainly a very good player. And until this injury, certainly accelerating in his career arc, if you will. I do not view Jonathan Kuminga as a mistake. I think we may have made some mistakes in how we handled it and how he handled it. Maybe he made some mistakes. And obviously that's well documented, and we had to move on. But he's an NBA player and played in the playoffs and did really well. And it's not a mistake at the 7th pick. There are 7th picks that are out of the league. So I'd say we blew that 2nd pick. And unfortunately, that was the most important one. And I wish we hadn't, obviously. But we're not perfect. No means are we perfect. We've done a really good job on other draft picks much later. We haven't had a lot of picks in the lottery because we've been very good. As we discussed earlier. So it's a statistical thing to some extent. I wish we could hit them all perfectly, but nobody does.
Let's talk about another thing I think you're going to be a little more brightened about. It's the Valkyries sitting in 2nd place, I believe, in the WNBA standings right now. Impressive team. Just you're the guy who said, I want to see a championship in 5 years. And people like, oh my goodness, Joe Lacob again. This is year 2. I don't know if you're going to win a championship. Who knows? There's some really good teams out there. But does it in your mind, are you thinking, okay, we can do this inside 5 years?
Sure. I made that statement, not necessarily that it was going to happen, or you can't legislate these things, but I made it to set a goal and a vision for what we all have to be working towards. We are trying to win, and we're trying to win within a period of time that makes our fans get excited too. So I did it with the Warriors. I didn't tell anybody I was going to say that back from 2010, and we did it. I think it was 4 years, 9 months, and 11 days, something like that. You know what? Sometimes setting a goal is the most important thing. And the Valkyries, I did it again, sort of a spur of the moment, because it just felt like the right thing to do. And I would say what we did do is we hired some really great ladies as our GM, as our business president, and as our coach. He's already won Coach of the Year, as you know, Natalie. We're ahead of schedule, I would say. We're an incredibly exciting team. Best defense in the league. I'm really excited about our team. We have a shot this year to win it. I'm not saying we will, but we're definitely close. We have the 2nd best record in the league, and we have a chance. And I think we should all be very, very excited about that. And by the way, more importantly than anything else, I'm just so proud of the job that everyone's done, not only on picking the roster last year and continuing this year. Again, continuity. We didn't make a lot of changes, and everyone said, oh, why didn't you make more changes? Well, we did bring in one player can make a big difference. Gabby came in, and it's been spectacular. And it's basketball. This isn't baseball, okay? one player can make a lot of difference. And she was a great free agent ad. Then you had continuity, progression with the other players. Natalie's getting even better as a coach. And suddenly we're really good. And I'm very excited about this. And I'm excited. I love our fans more than anything else. It's so exciting when you go to a game. I can't, every time I walk in there, I just can't believe what the atmosphere is like. It's fantastic.
And you will get a home playoff game at Chase Center, which
Yes.
did not happen last year. I imagine.
No, unfortunately, we didn't expect to be in the playoffs our first year last year, in all honesty. And it was an unfortunate thing. We had to play in San Jose, but that's never going to happen again. So
you've been open about like you can attract stars, and WNBA stars are going to be looking at what's happening, looking at Valhalla, looking at this team, the way it plays. Do you think that's a little lesson right now, given how good this team is, that you don't necessarily have to be hunting for stars? Or are you, Joe Lacob, always going to be the person like we can always go try to get the best players available?
We're always going to look at the best players out, whoever's out there. We're going to look at everything. If there's a great player, we're going to look at it and see if it's a good fit, see if we can get that person. But I will say, Natalie has based her system on a lot on culture, getting the right kind of players, getting them to buy in, and having a lot of depth and a certain identity for the team, which in this case is a great defensive identity. And I mean, it's a tremendous lesson. Great job of building the team by Ohema and Natalie coaching this team. It shows you if you do the right things. We don't have, a Steph Curry. We don't have a big name star, really. Gabby's the closest to it. But we're really good because of all these other things that we just talked about. And so there's different ways to win.
Yeah. I mean, are you thinking maybe you don't need one of those top 4 players to win a championship in WNBA?
Well, we're going to find out how far we get this year, and then I can really answer that question a little better.
Okay. Well, it's going into September too, Joe. It's like I'm looking at it, my God, this is going to be a late season because FIBA, the World Cup, so the season's taking a break. It's going to be into football season, but I'll be ready for it. I'll find my way myself to certainly some playoff games. Joe, let's end this with a version of the question I've asked you before. I've asked all my guests. Joe, what's your favorite TV show right now?
I'll tell you, as you know, I watch Nicole and I watch a fair amount of these series. We like to relax with that at night. I love right this moment. I love this show, Lioness.
Okay, yeah.
That's a really fun show, and we did finish recently Dutton Ranch. I don't know if you saw that.
So yeah, I'm not in that universe. I know people like a lot of those.
Taylor
shows.
Sheridan. These are both Taylor Sheridan. This guy he's unbelievable. Hit after hit, really great shows. I think really excellent, and so I really like watching those.
All right, Joe. Appreciate it as always. Good conversation. People, you can go ahead and aggregate it. It's a TK show. And you know what? Mostly rip me. Take Lacob, you get your own stuff.
I'm going to get ripped. You're going to get ripped. That's what it is.
At some point, I was telling you, like, I was getting a double hit of the whole Kyle Shanahan conspiracy stuff, and I was getting the stuff when I was aggregated poorly by saying Joe Lacob wants to win now and he wants to win later, and somehow that became this tumult. It's like, you know what? At some point, people are talking about me. What am I going to do? I don't like the inaccurate stuff, but at some point, you kind of have to step away from it a little bit.
Well, I don't like the inaccurate stuff either, and I read everything, unfortunately. I don't tweet or X or whatever you want to call it now, but I've never done it. I made a promise to my son Kirk I would never do that. Let me tell you, I so want to.
yes,
sometimes because it's just some of the things that are said and the aggregation. Look, they're looking for clicks, and people have a right to their opinion. On the other hand, too, so I understand that, but it's just so irritating when it is inaccurate, or doesn't give you credit for a lot of the good things that you do in all this. And anyway, it's tough.
And at some point I might criticize Joe Lacob. I think I have at times, and that doesn't ever get brought up, but that's okay. 4 championships also gets brought up a lot, I'll put it that way.
Criticism is okay, because the truth is you have to look in the mirror sometimes. I make mistakes. I'm sure you feel that way too. We all do. But the truth is it gets a little tedious sometimes when people don't take into account, especially when they look at something in such a short-term window when you can't quite really always do that. I mean, for logistical reasons.
Context is context, but at least people are talking about the Golden State Warriors and Joe Lacob, and sometimes that's just what the conversation is always going to be. All right, Joe, I appreciate all your time. Appreciate the conversation. I'm sure I'll be seeing you soon. I'm sure we'll be having more conversations. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much for having me. I
All
appreciate
right,
it.
everybody. That's the show for today.